including many Americans, and we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. The Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now, we're doing this for the future. Lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death. Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass.
We've also heard from Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who said the attack on Iran will continue for as long as is necessary.
A short while ago, Israel and the United States launched a joint campaign, Operation Lion's Roar. The objective of the operation is to put an end to the threat from the Ayatollah regime in Iran. At this time, the IDF is attacking targets of the oppressive regime, facilities of the Revolutionary Guard, along with the United States military, targeting ballistic missile sites that threaten both Israel and US forces. This operation will continue as long as necessary. In recent months, the tyrants in Iran have been plotting to rebuild their nuclear and missile capabilities and to bury them underground, where we won't be able to strike them. If we don't stop them now, they will become invulnerable. To that end, their representatives in negotiations are trying to buy time, attempting to buy time in fruitless and deceitful negotiations with our American friends. Therefore, we have now launched Operation Lion's Roar, an action that is much more powerful than Operation Rising Lions, which was very powerful. We are doing this in full cooperation with our friends in the United States under the brave leadership of President Trump. Together with the United States, we will strike hard at the terror regime and create conditions that will allow the brave Iranian people to rid themselves of this murderous regime. Whoever lays down their weapon, including among the regime forces, will ensure their safety and secure their future. The Iranian people in all their diversity, Persians, Kurds, Azeris, Balochs, Abkhazians, and all other citizens of this wonderful nation. This is your opportunity to establish a new and free Iran. Take your destiny into your own hands.
We'll show you a picture now, a satellite image taken earlier on, which shows black smoke and extensive damage to the compound of Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. As you'd expect at times, there's plenty of rumours flying around online as to his well-being and whereabouts. But in the past few moments, we learned via Al Alam TV, which is Iranian state-owned outlet, they're saying that the Supreme Leader is going to give a speech within minutes, so we await to see if that will happen. Let's bring in Sky Security and Defence editor Deborah Haynes right now, though. This was signalled for quite a while because of the build-up, Debs, of plenty of military assets of the US in the region. And that said, the people involved in those talks in Geneva thought they were progressing positively. So that all looks now perhaps like a bit of a smokescreen on the part of the US itself.
It does, and it's interesting to see the British, French and German positions on this. They are all absolutely condemnatory of the Iranian regime and united in that expressed intent from Donald Trump that Iran should not have nuclear weapons. However, they all clearly favour diplomacy to resolving this crisis, and are not expressly supporting the US military action, which is so different to previous large-scale interventions. You'll remember the run-up to the US invasion of Iraq. There was months of effort by George Bush and his government and Tony Blair, who was obviously then working alongside the Americans as part of that invading force, to try to convince the international community of the legitimacy of this military action. And obviously, then it was a disaster. This time around, Donald Trump has just avoided the whole of any sense of trying to get international support for this military action. And for his allies, they will be looking on with concern, because it does set a dangerous precedent when it comes to the use of force. There has been overwhelming condemnation of Vladimir Putin, for example, for his full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And while no one is drawing comparisons between those two events, clearly there is nervousness about the decision to take military action now, especially given diplomacy was still playing out.
Deborah, thank you very much indeed. Here with me in the studio is our Security and Defence Analyst, Professor Michael Clark. Let's just pick up on some of what Deborah was saying there in terms of where's the strategy here? What is the thinking on behalf of the US and Israel as well, of course?
I think the strategy is that this is a great opportunity. I mean, people have been saying to Donald Trump for some time now, Iran has never been weaker for all the reasons that we've talked about over the last 12 months. And that, you know, Mr. President, if you don't take advantage of this, history won't forgive you. This is your moment to bring down a regime that has been anti-American since 1979. And President Trump said in his 8-minute video, he said every Friday they chant death to America, which they do. And so that, you know, what he's been being told is that don't miss this opportunity. We can remake the Middle East. Now, of course, he's been hearing that from Israel, because Israelis, having absorbed the shock of the atrocity of the 7th of October 2023, which is a long time ago now, the Israelis have absorbed the shock. They've come back and taken on all of their enemies one at a time, and then simultaneously the Houthis in Yemen, Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Iranians directly last year in the 12-day war in June. This, in Israeli thinking, and the Israelis seem to be united on this. I mean, Lapid, the opposition leader, was saying so earlier on.
He calls it a just war, doesn't he?
Just war, exactly. This is their moment to remake the Middle East. And their view is that, look, a lot of the Gulf Arab states, they condemn all these things, but privately they say to us, get on with it, do it. This time, I'm not sure that's true. It was always the case before that when Israel hit out at Iran, the Arab states either stayed quiet or issued some condemnation, but they didn't mean it. That's what Israelis always felt. This time, I think the Arab states are genuinely nervous, that they quite like the idea of an Iran which is enfeebled, but they don't like the idea of an Iran which collapses, because that will create enormous instability, or could do, throughout the region. So we're on the cusp here of an Israeli-American attempt to remake the geography, the political geography of the Middle East. And a lot of people in the Middle East are worried about how disruptive and how vicious that might turn out to be.
So it's more than regime change. It's trying to change the geopolitical landscape of the wider region here.
For sure. Because the view in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and increasingly now the view in Washington, in the Trump administration, is that the problem that they have is Tehran. You know, they can get on with Riyadh, they can get on with Saudi Arabia, they get on very well with the Gulf states, they can help remake Syria under its new government, they can deal with Lebanon and Gaza and Yemen. These are not strategically important. These places are just nuisances in a strategic sense. That if you have a powerful Israel, a powerful Saudi Arabia, good economic relations with the Gulf, and in Iran under some sort of new, but we'll see about that. But any sort of new management would then create a more westernized, stable Middle East. And who's to say they're wrong? I mean, in 10 years' time, the Middle East might look very different. But there certainly, if that's the case, will be great winners and losers. And the most obvious losers, as always, will be the Palestinians.
Yeah. Well, the Shah's own son, Pahlavi, has been in the US since he was, I think, 17.
He was, yeah, and
When his father fell.
keeps calling on the opposition to come out on the streets. Interesting, I haven't heard him say anything in the last
No.
12 hours.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to hear what he says, because if he calls the opposition out onto the streets in the middle of this, most of the opposition will get shot. I mean, if the IRGC are out there on the streets and the Bajis are there, the militia who operate all over the place, if they see people, in groups demonstrating or approaching government buildings, they'll say, this is all part of the American war against us. They'll shoot them. And so the idea that President Trump has seemed to have articulated that this is the moment for the opposition to come out on the streets, well, would you? I mean, it's a very, very dangerous thing to do.
Yes.
The population will probably, I'm sure, keep their heads down to see what happens.
Yeah.
And, we won't be able to move to that part of President Trump's rather muddled thinking about this for at least a week or two.
Well, plenty of them will have seen tens of thousands of people killed in recent weeks when there was an uprising, so they'll be
Up
fresh.
to, some say, 30,000.
Yes, it'll be fresh in their
Yeah.
memories. Michael, for the time being, thank you very much indeed. We're going to bring in now Professor Fawaz Gerges, who is the author of ISIS, A History, and the chair of Contemporary Middle Eastern Studies at the London School of Economics. Fawaz, always good to see you. The obvious starting question for you is, what happens next?
No one knows what is going to happen next. All of us talking heads don't know what's going to happen next. Neither President Trump nor Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu know what's going to happen next. This is really the beginning of a very difficult and dangerous and complex conflict in the Middle East. We know this is cliché. It's easy to start a war, but it's very difficult to know the end result of this particular war. Myself, as a historian of the modern Middle East, I have seen this show many times. I have seen this show in 1953, when the United States toppled the Iranian Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. I have seen this show in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Libya. Do I really believe that American air power and Israeli air power could basically bring about regime change in Tehran? It's delusional. It's wishful thinking. The reality is, by climbing the tree very hard, President Trump has made it very clear now, his overarching aim is not to destroy just the Iranian nuclear program or its ballistic missiles, is to bring about a regime change in Tehran. At the end of the conflict, whether it's a few weeks or a few months, the Iranian regime is going to say, we have won, because we are still here. We are deeply entrenched, and the Iranian people rally around the flag. This is my take on it, even though I could be wrong, because no one knows what's going to happen as the conflict escalates in the next few hours and next few days.
It is really interesting, that list of examples you made, Afghanistan in particular. That was regime change, effectively trying to get rid of the Taliban. And where are we now? They're back in and they're fighting with Pakistan. Fairly unpredictable stuff. In which case, where do you think and this is a question I asked Michael just previously, what do you think the strategic aims are here for both Israel and US? You would hope, as an outsider looking in, they have a fairly firm idea of how they would like it to play out in the coming hours and days.
Well, I mean, I think you're talking about Prime Minister Starmer.
I'm talking about the US and Israel primarily. We'll get on to the UK in a second, but
Yeah.
in terms of the upcoming tactics and the overall strategy, you would imagine they have a good sense of where they want it to go.
They really don't. I mean, that's why most of the governments in the Middle East, including Iran's traditional rivals, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, all of them pleaded with President Trump not to go to war. Israel is the only state that basically was coordinating with the United States to attack Iran, because the idea is Iran now faces an existential crisis. It's between a rock, basically opposition at home, and a harder place. It's weakened by the 12 days war last June. So Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu seems to have convinced President Trump, this is it. Iran is vulnerable, Iran is weak, Iran on its knees, let's deliver the fatal blow. But Iran's regional neighbors know very well. Any prolonged war in the region will affect their security, their stability, their energy supplies, their decision to focus, diversify their economies, even though they don't care for Iran. But the reality is now, I mean, look what's happening. Iran now is targeting most of its neighbors, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Kuwait, Iraq, and of course, Iran masters the art of making enemies, because Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain and Kuwait, they're all now blaming Iran for their attacks on their sovereignty. Again, it's very early to say what could happen, but my take on it, Iran is not Iraq in 2003. Iran is a nation of 90 million people. Iran is a civilization. If history is a lesson, the Iranian moment, the external threat rally around the flag. And there's a sizable, significant segment of the Iranian population still supports the Islamic Republic, even though millions of Iranians would like to disappear the repressive regime. All in all, I think my take on it is that if this war really escalates into a region-wide war, as seems to be the case, this really could have major implication on regional stability in the next few months and next few years to come.
Ramifications for regional stability mean ramifications really for all of us, don't they? We've got Russia and China convening a meeting of the UN Security, wanting to convene a meeting of the UN Security Council later on today. There are ramifications for everybody. I mean, you mentioned Keir Starmer. He was keen to say Britain has not been involved at all in this military operation, but simultaneously saying the regime in Iran is dangerous and abhorrent. There are ramifications, and let's not forget the economic possibilities here with the Strait of Hormuz and so much oil and gas passing through there. The effects are going to be wide-ranging of this.
Well, look, if you ask me what will China and Russia do, I would say nothing. Russia and China will not lift a finger to provide Iran with any material support that could really make a difference in this war. In fact, if I were in China today, if I were a Chinese leader, I would say, let them go. Let the Americans basically entangle themselves in another Middle Eastern war. And all the surveys that we have seen in the past 1 year since President Trump basically entered the White House is that China is the main beneficiary. Why would China basically entangle itself in a geopolitical conflict? There are no winners in this conflict. There will be no winners. And the major losers in this particular conflict, I fear, are the Iranian people. At the end of the day, thousands of Iranians will be killed. I don't know whether I could read the situation very clearly at this particular stage. I find it very difficult for American and Israeli air power to dislodge the Islamic Republic, a regime that's deeply embedded with a solid ideology and stamina and willingness to fight to the death. So that's why this particular war, the strategy of Iran, as I understand it, is to prolong the war. The strategy of Iran is to really have resilience, is to survive this war and the aftershocks of the war in order to say at the end of the day, well, look, even the most powerful nation in the world, the United States and Israel, could not really destroy the Islamic Republic. And this is how it will be played by Iran, inside Iran, and the region as well.
The Israelis, though, would say they would probably be pretty confident in their intelligence, wouldn't they? Their intelligence coming from within inside Iran as to the level of strength or weakness of the regime and the IRGC.
Well, look, I mean, the Americans know, the American military and intelligence communities know very well that they are in the dark, that even though they have some intelligence about certain assets, I have no doubts in my mind that the United States and Israel will destroy the strategic and security infrastructure in Iran. Iran is vulnerable. Iran's skies are open. That's not the question. The question is now, will the air power used by the United States and Israel dislodge the Iranian regime? And also, I think we need to take into account, and I know your viewers need to know this, I mean, who authorized President Trump to carry out this particular attack?
Yes.
Have the American people authorize this attack? Have the Security Council authorize this attack? And at the end of the day, what we are seeing really is that the shattering of international institutions and that naked power is the currency, the dominant currency of politics and diplomacy, and this will come to harm all of us. Because if the United States could do it, China could do it too in Taiwan, and Russia could do it in other places as well, because we are back to the jungle. I don't care for the Iranian regime, I really don't. But the reality is, this is an illegal, illegitimate, a war of choice, President Trump's war.
Well, Fawaz, I was going to pick you up on that point. Given that you are in Los Angeles and it's coming up to midnight there, of course. Beg your pardon, it's not midnight, it's later than that, of course. Plenty of America is waking up to this, and plenty of detractors of Donald Trump are saying exactly that. There was no congressional agreement on this. They're saying this flies in the face of his America First approach and means it's more likely Israel first. Is that what you think?
Yes, I mean, just to give you an idea, I am in the United States now, and I was in the thick of the debate in 2003. President George W. Bush, regardless, he went to the American people and told the American people why he wanted to attack Iran, even though his rationale was based on falsehood. We know now. President Trump has not even told the American people why he decided to attack Iran now. Is Iran an immediate threat now? The New York Times had a piece 2 days ago, and it was on the front page, and it said the three major reasons that President Trump has laid out to attack Iran are either false or not proven. Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. Iran does not have the materials to build a nuclear weapon now, and Iran's ballistic missiles can never reach either London or Washington. And the reality is, again, at the end of the day, even the chief of staffs of the United States, General King, cautioned the president against war against Iran, because no one knows the consequences, the midterm and the long-term consequences. Again, back to the cliche. It's easy to start a war, but it's very difficult to end the war on your own terms. And that's what President Trump, sadly and tragically, will discover in the next few weeks and next few months.
Further ahead domestically, we may see the results in the midterms themselves, of course. Fawaz Gerges, really appreciate you joining us from Los Angeles early in the morning there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keir Starmer spoke earlier from Downing Street about the US attack on Iran. Here's what he said.
Earlier this morning, the United States and Israel struck targets in Iran. Iran has since launched indiscriminate strikes across the region. I know the British people and communities across our country will be deeply concerned about what this means for security and stability, and for the fate of innocent people across the region, which for so many of us includes friends and family members. So whilst the situation is evolving very quickly, I want to set out our response. The United Kingdom played no role in these strikes, but we have long been clear. The regime in Iran is utterly abhorrent. They have murdered thousands of their own people, brutally crushed dissent, and sought to destabilize the region. Even in the United Kingdom, the Iranian regime poses a direct threat to dissidents and to the Jewish community. Over the last year alone, they have 20 potentially lethal attacks on UK soil. So it is clear they must never be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon. That remains the primary aim of the United Kingdom and our allies, including the US. I condemn Iran's attacks today on partners across the region, many of which are not parties to this conflict. We extend our support and solidarity to them as part of our commitments to the security of our allies in the Middle East. We have a range of defensive capabilities in the region, which we've recently strengthened. Our forces are active, and British planes are in the sky today as part of coordinated regional defensive operations to protect our people, our interests, and our allies, as Britain has done before, in line with international law. We've stepped up protections for British bases and personnel to their highest level. We are also reaching out to UK nationals in the region and doing everything we can to support them. I've been speaking with leaders today from the E3 and across the region. It is vital that we prevent further escalation and return to a diplomatic process. We want to see peace and security and the protection of civilian life. Iran can end this now. They should refrain from further strikes, give up their weapons programs, and cease the appalling violence and repression against the Iranian people, who deserve the right to determine their own future in line with our long-standing position. This is the route to de-escalation and back to the negotiating table.
Our political correspondent, Amanda Raycast, is in Westminster. What do you make of that from Keir Starmer, Amanda?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that are interesting in terms of moving our understanding of the UK situation is forward, in that we already knew that UK forces weren't involved in the attacks and US weren't given permission, it seems, to use UK military bases as part of their operation. But the Prime Minister there explaining that British planes are currently in the sky at the moment as part of a coordinated defensive military operation to defend our people, our interests and our allies within the broader region. Now, we do know that in January the UK sent some Typhoon jets to Qatar to help bolster defensive capabilities of the UK in the region, and we know that F-35 jets from Cyprus can also operate as part of the UK capacity there. We don't have any more detail yet as to exactly what involvement that is, but I think it's interesting as well, the Prime Minister stressing his commitment to international law on that front. Now, more broadly, there was no either overt support or overt criticism of the US-Israeli action. The Prime Minister is clearly trying to tread a very careful diplomatic line. There are many within his party and to the left of British politics who have been calling for him to come out and condemn the US-Israeli military action, describing it as illegal, unprovoked, unjustified. Clearly there is real concern within the Labour Party after what happened with Iraq for any kind of military involvement in the Middle East of this kind of nature. And Sir Keir Starmer has clearly lived those concerns, but he obviously hasn't come out and been critical of the UK's closest ally, America. Certainly he's also quite keen to express his support, not for the means perhaps, but for the ends. He talked a lot about the threat posed by Iran. He criticised the indiscriminate response to the attacks from the Iranians, but also he described the regime as abhorrent, and he was quite outspoken about the direct threat posed to the UK by the regime's operations, particularly threats to the Jewish community and dissidents here in the UK, and talked about 20 possibly fatal attacks which they've been behind on UK soil. He also went on to say what we want to see is them giving up their weapons capabilities and stopping repressing their own people, which is the justification really for this military action, saying he wants to see them come back to the negotiating table. Now, within that, there is also no acknowledgement that they were at the negotiating table before this action was taken against them. And I think this approach is very classic Starmer, cautious middle ground, which I think there are those on the left, clearly as discussed, who will be frustrated by this, but also on the right, you've got the Conservatives saying the UK should be coming out in support of the US over this, saying it's completely justified. And you've got Nigel Farage and Reform UK saying the UK should have been opening up its military bases to help the US to take this action. But clearly, for Sir Keir Starmer, it is a bit of a tightrope act because he knows that he needs to keep Donald Trump on side. He's invested huge amounts of political time and energy to try and develop a close relationship with the Trump White House. But at the same time, it seems it's reported, at least, the reason that he didn't want to see those UK bases used previously is because of concerns over international law. So at the moment, this is quite a holding position, I would say, from the UK government.
Thank you very much indeed, Amanda. Well, President Trump addressed the American people in the early hours of the morning, confirming, in his words, a major combat operation was underway. He urged Iranian people to rise up against their government, but he stopped short of saying the aim is regime change. Left little doubt, though, that is his goal. Let's take a listen.
The United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. The United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We're going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. And we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. The Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now, we're doing this for the future. Lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death. Finally, to the great proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered, don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass.
Let's bring in now Alan Eyre, a distinguished diplomatic fellow at the Middle East Institute and former senior US diplomat. Good afternoon to you. Does what Donald Trump says he wants to happen, is that likely to happen?
No, it's not. Certainly the United States can inflict massive military damage. It can take out some of Iran's leadership. But let me revise that. He can so decimate the Iranian infrastructure and the ruling institutions, that the Iranian people can then try something. But the odds of this ending up with a new and more user-friendly Iranian government is very slim.
And the Israelis are saying that prior to this, Iran was presenting an existential threat. Was that the case?
Well, certainly contrary to what President Trump said, there was no imminent threat to the United States. So the proximate cause of the US attack on Iran doesn't make sense. Israel has in fact seen Iran as an existential threat. Iran has threatened to wipe out Israel. But again, it's the weakest it's ever been, Iran. All three pillars of its strategic deterrence are gone. So as a practical matter, Iran posed no real threat to Israel, but Israel sees this as a good time to get rid of the regime.
Alan, stay there for a second, because we've had some picturing from the Fairmont Hotel that's in Dubai, and I want to show our viewers that. Let's have a look. Well, as you can see, a huge explosion in Dubai. Let's bring Alan Eyre back in, because, Alan, this does rather show that this is not action that is confined to Iran or Israel, the wider region, and parts of the wider region that people would have considered very safe previously, like Dubai, like the wider United Arab Emirates, like Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. They're now involved in this.
Well, we knew this was going to happen. Iran, as I said, felt it with missing strategic deterrence. So it said if in fact the United States attacked, it would respond aggressively against U.S. allies in the region, against U.S. forces in the region, and against Israel. And many of these countries, to include the UAE, have U.S. military bases. There are U.S. military assets there. So this is expected.
We saw, of course, in recent weeks, when there were protests on the streets of cities across Iran, how the regime crushed those, killing tens of thousands of people, we believe. How afraid are you for the wider population of Iran and the risks that are posed to them now?
The probable outcome in almost every scenario for the Iranian people is bad. It's increasing immiseration. It's a state that is less and less able or willing to provide essential goods and services. President Trump started this, I think, hoping that there would be a collapse of this regime and somehow miraculously a new regime taking its place that will benefit the Iranian people. I don't see that happening. So I think the downside of this military action for the Iranian people and for the region is quite high.
Let's finish off with a more domestic focus for the US. A lot of criticism from certain quarters of Donald Trump for going ahead and doing this without congressional approval. We've seen, haven't we, in recent weeks, the Supreme Court overturning some of what Donald Trump wants to do in terms of tariffs. The fact that he's done this, could there be ramifications for him in his presidency?
Well, you're quite right, Matt. This is both illegal by U.S. law and also by international law. He didn't seek congressional authorization, nor did he try to get any sort of consensus at the UN amongst our allies. There are midterms coming up. His popularity is at record lows. The economic news is both good and bad. So yes, and the majority of American people, according to polls, are not in favor of the war that he just started. So yes, this could have significant adverse political, domestic repercussions for President Trump, unless it ends quickly and ends well, which I don't think is likely.
Yeah, let me just pick up on that final point. A lot of Republicans, a lot of MAGA supporters believed in and voted for him because of putting America first. But any observer would look at this and wonder if it is putting America first or someone else.
Well, not just America first, Matt. One of his reasons for running was to get America out of what he called forever wars and to avoid new wars that he said other presidents started. But actually, it turns out that President Trump has been far more militaristic than previous presidents. He's gotten away with it so far, but it's a very open question as to whether he'll get away with it now. So yeah, this is not going to result in America being stronger or being safer.
Alan, I really appreciate your time this afternoon. Thanks for joining us here on Sky News.
Thank you, Matt.
The Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has been speaking to an American network. Let's hear what he has been saying.
Minister Araghchi, we appreciate your making time to speak to us right now. We have a series of questions. We know that you are one of the few in that country who have the access to communicate outside of a country where there is a large blackout of communications at this time. First and foremost, our question to you, sir, is can you give us a better understanding of the situation on the ground there, the impacts that have taken place? And separately, can you confirm to us that the Ayatollah and the president are both still alive?
Well, thank you for having me. Well, the situation on the ground is quite, I cannot say normal, but the life is going on. Everything is under control. I think Americans and Israelis failed to, access to hit their targets, and now everything is under control. And we almost in less than 2 hours we were able to start retaliation by attacking, American bases and some targets in Israel by our missiles. Almost all officials are safe and sound and alive. We may have lost 1 or 2 commanders, but that is not a big problem. We are actually managing it. We are handling the situation. And I was in contact with, my colleagues in the Persian Gulf, and I explained for them that, we have no intention to attack them, but we are actually attacking the American bases in the act of self-defense. We cannot just sit and watch they are attacking us and we don't, respond simply because their bases are in a friendly neighbor country. So I explained for them, and I hope that they understand this situation. Another point I have to mention is, I don't know why the US administration insists to start a negotiation and then in the middle of negotiation attack the other party. Today happened exactly what last June happened. We were in the middle of negotiations, and and it was interesting that this time we made a big progress. 2 days ago on Thursday, we had a very good meeting in Geneva together with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. And we were able to address serious questions related to Iran's nuclear program. We obviously have differences, but we resolved some of those differences, and we decided to continue in order to resolve the rest of questions. And we actually instructed the technical team to go to Vienna and have a meeting with the IAEA. In order to find technical solution for the problems we are facing in the negotiation. And everybody was happy at the end of those negotiations. As you saw, His Excellency Badr al-Busaidi, the Foreign Minister of Oman, who is mediating between us, he concluded by posting a tweet saying that today we made significant progress. And before he posted his tweet, he consulted with both delegations and both were happy. So I don't know why, while we were progressing in our talks and we had made good, achievements, and a deal was at our reach, why they decided to attack us. Perhaps, it was others who dragged the United States for their own benefits into this, conflict. It's really pity. It's very unfortunate. And yes.
Mr. Araghchi, I appreciate your comments there, and we do have a series of other questions I want to ask you, but just for clarity for our audience right now, can you confirm with specificity that the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is alive, and separately that the Iranian president is alive right now following these American and Israeli strikes?
As far as I know, yes, they are alive, and the head of judiciary as well, the head of the Speaker of Parliament as well, all high-ranking officials are alive, and the secretary of the National Security Council. So everybody is now in its position, and we are handling this situation, and everything is fine.
Sir, do you believe that you were targeted as part of these strikes?
You mean me?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. They have targeted everybody. You know, just now I saw the footages of their attack to a girl school in the city of Minab, in the southern part of Iran. So 57 girls were killed by their strike. So when they strike a school, so it is, they can also, you know, hit others easily. This attack was unprovoked, illegal, and absolutely illegitimate, and against the international law, and should be condemned. That is obvious.
You said that Iran is prepared to take self-defense towards these actions. What would that entail?
Well, we are facing an act of aggression, and obviously we have every right to defend ourselves. So what we are doing is act of self-defense, which is absolutely legal and legitimate. So, and we think that we are fully prepared for that, even more prepared than previous time, the 12-day war. And I believe we managed this. We know very well how to defend ourselves. We learned lots of lessons from the previous war, and we will certainly teach the aggressors a lesson they deserve.
Mr. Araghchi, if I may ask you very quickly right now, we know that Iran, via the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, via its proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthi rebels in Yemen, has carried out attacks on Americans, on others throughout that region. Iran insists that its nuclear program has never been with the desire to create nuclear weapons. But my question to you is, sir, why should the United States and why should the rest of the world trust Iran when it says its efforts to create a nuclear program are only for civilian use and not to continue to carry out harm against Western and American interests?
Well, first of all, we don't have proxies. There are certain groups who are fighting for a just cause, and we support them.
So that would make them a proxy, correct, sir?
But you know, they are not receiving orders from us. They are independent groups, but we support them, and we support them in their fight for the right of self-determination or to free their land from occupation, whatever. But for the time being, we don't need anybody for our defense. We are capable enough to defend ourselves, and we will do that, and we don't need the help of anybody. On our nuclear program, I think there are every reason that Iran does not want nuclear weapon. And the whole world has tested us when in 2015, we signed a deal and we announced very clearly that Iran would never seek, develop or acquire nuclear weapons, and that was a permanent commitment in 2015 deal. I know that President Trump doesn't like that deal, but at least we proved our goodwill, and we proved that we are not seeking nuclear weapons, and it was not Iran who withdrew from that deal, it was the US. And still in 2025, when the US offered us negotiation to find a solution for Iran's nuclear program, again we accepted. We entered into negotiation in good faith. At least 3 times we came to a good conclusion, but my interlocutor in the other side couldn't sell it in Washington. Then they suddenly attacked us. Again this time, we entered into negotiation with the help of our Omani friends and others. Everybody supported those negotiations, and we made significant progress this time. And then they attacked us. So we have, it is us who have negative, bitter experiences from talking to the United States. We have never wanted nuclear weapon. There is both religious, convictions by us, the verdict by the Supreme Leader, who considered all these weapons as inhumane and against the Islamic teachings. At the same time, they have no place in our security doctrine, and I can explain. But I would like to reaffirm once again that we have proved our goodwill. We negotiated with E3 and then E3 plus 3 or P5 plus 1, and we concluded a deal the whole world celebrated, and we remain committed to that deal in 2015. But it was the US who withdrew, not us. And again, the experiences of last year and this year. So I think
that is Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi speaking to our colleagues at NBC News. Interesting lines he said, some of which you would expect, saying the Americans and Israelis have failed. They don't know why. They insisted on negotiating and then attacking, he said, and also said that they would teach the aggressors a lesson they deserve. In the meantime, we've been hearing more coming out of Dubai. In the United Arab Emirates, emergency response teams there have been responding to an incident in a building in the Palm Jumeirah area. Let's bring in our colleague Sally Lockwood, who is in Dubai as well. Sally, what are you hearing?
Hello to you, Matt. Yes, certainly a very unnerving last hour here in Dubai. Images and videos began circulating around an hour ago showing a luxury hotel on the Palm in Dubai on fire with a huge plume of smoke coming out of it. I've been sent those videos from various angles, including the video I think you're showing now of the apparent strike. Now, what's not clear is whether this was a missile strike on the hotel or whether it was shot down by air defences and then landed on the hotel. We actually don't know any detail. All we have so far are those images and confirmation now from the Dubai Media Office that emergency response teams have responded to an incident in a building in Palm Jumeirah area, and they've confirmed that 4 individuals were injured in this incident. Now, it's absolutely extraordinary scenes, as you can see. The Palm area of Dubai is a luxury spot for people to live, to go on holiday. It's full of beachfront properties and luxury hotels. The idea that a 5-star hotel, the Fairmont Hotel, we understand on the Palm, has been hit by an apparent Iranian missile is absolutely extraordinary. And as I say, we don't know the circumstances behind this strike. We don't know whether it was air defences that shot it out of the sky and that was the result, that it landed there. My hunch would be that that is what happened because the air defences here are extremely strong. We've had around 5 waves of missiles fired at the UAE by Iran today. Some have been flying over my house. I've seen them in the sky. I've certainly been hearing bangs and even feeling some of them. It's been a surreal day and very hard to describe the mood here. It's definitely one of tension, anxiety, and a sense that people don't really know what tomorrow looks like. The UAE is home to around 240,000 British citizens. Many people come here on holiday. One of the big draws isn't just the sunshine, it's also the sense of safety, and it really does feel like that has been shattered today. And of course, it's not just the UAE that has been attacked by Iran. Other Gulf states, Qatar, Saudi, Kuwait. We've been hearing that Bahrain as well was hit. US naval facilities there have apparently been hit. We're still awaiting confirmation on that and the extent of the damage, but it is absolutely extraordinary. Of course, we knew that Iran would retaliate. We just weren't clear on what that retaliation would look like and the extent of it, but we are now beginning to get an idea. I'm also hearing reports from the national newspaper here in the UAE that the Strait of Hormuz, which is a very narrow waterway between the UAE and Oman and Iran to the north, at its most narrow point, it's just 21 miles wide, and it's a choke point for much of the world's oil. Around a fifth of the world's oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz, and that waterway is controlled by Iran. And the national newspaper is reporting that certain vessels have been instructed not to proceed through the Strait of Hormuz today, and that source is a regional shipping executive. There will be a lot of concern about that. The economic implications of that could be felt very far and wide, and certainly that is something that Iran has threatened many times in the past, and we can definitely expect that Iran will attempt to either close the Strait of Hormuz or severely disrupt it. But for now, what we're really focused on here is security. These missiles have been flying overhead. I would say the most recent one, the most recent series of bangs that I've heard was about an hour ago. So we're just tensely waiting to see what happens for the rest of the evening.
Sally, thank you, and do stay safe, of course. It is 4 o'clock. You're watching Sky News with continuing coverage of the strikes on Iran. It's been predicted for weeks, but it is now underway. A massive assault carried out by the US and Israel. They've hit military and defensive targets across the country, with the belief in Israel at least